And we're getting this party started. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for showing up to Coffee, Tea, You and Me. This is, I don't care. I don't even know what edition this is, but we've been doing this live show since last March. Wow, it's March again. It's been a year. Oh my God. We got to celebrate an anniversary. We got a year coming up. This is going to be great. I remember late March last year, I started doing these live broadcasts, and I've tried different platforms and I've opened up to different things. But today, our broadcast is showing up on YouTube and on Facebook Live. And so if you're going to watch it live in the live stream, you can catch us from there. And if you are a part of the studio audience, you can post comments in the comment section, both on LinkedIn and Facebook. I would highly encourage you to do so. Little homework before we get the party started. Please feel free to take lots of notes, ask lots of questions. Even if I don't get to your questions, sometimes I have audience members who will see the questions and get to your questions. So feel free to ask any questions that you have. Today's topic is going to be super exciting, and I'm really excited about our special guest that we're going to have today. We're going to be having Miss Sarah White, who is not just a up-and-coming political dynamo. She's also a small business guru, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about, she's going to be kind of co-hosting with me the topic today, which is promises. And we'll get a little bit more details in about that. And if anybody wants to talk to me about our Leverage Up conference, which is coming up on the 27th of March. I'm going to put that in the chat right now so everybody can get a glimpse of that. Sometimes I'm a genius and sometimes I'm not. Look at this. Okay, so I can do it this way. Boom, there we go. Let's put it in the comment section here. And in just a few seconds, I'm going to be posting a discount to that conference. It's going to be an all-day small business conference, all about small business issues, and more importantly, it's about leverage. How to take your business image, brand, whatever it is you got going on, and create leverage. Leverage is all about power. It's all about empowerment and finding the space that you need to find to create everything that you want to create for your business and for your community. And so I would encourage you all to come. I got some dynamic speakers that are going to be coming through, some amazing topics, but all day we're going to be talking about leverage. There'll be things for you to plug into, things for you to pay attention to, and all kinds of super deals and discounts and bonuses are going to be given out. Now, I'm trying to give away like at least $10,000 worth of prizes and gifts for this particular event. So if anybody's interested, you can go ahead and hit the link and buy a ticket. And if you want the discount ticket, I know you want the discount ticket. You want the discount ticket, go ahead and put that in the chat if you want to see what the discount ticket is like, right? It's like 50% off. And if I can figure out how to get it back to you and post it in there, I definitely will. But for some reason, I lost the link to that. So I'll have to get that back to you guys in just a little bit. But we're going to continue the show for now. Like I said, today we're talking about promises. And promises is the second step in my 9-step to mastery process. I taught this and I teach this to everybody who needs to learn how to network, everybody who needs to learn how to build professional relationships, need to understand all of these 9 steps. And we're going through them one by one, week by week during Coffee, Tea, You and Me right now. And we're taking a deep dive into it, but nowhere near as deep as we get into when we go like we do special training or anything like that. So if you want to find out more about that kind of stuff, feel free to join us in the roundtable, which is our weekly program that we do for our friends and family to get together and really share everything about their needs and ideas for their businesses. We provide that warm and friendly environment where they feel accepted, and all kinds of good stuff happens at the roundtable. Maybe Sarah will share her thoughts on that when we invite her to the room. Okay, so we're gonna have a quick commercial break, and then we're gonna come right back in a couple seconds and talk to Miss Sarah White. If I can figure out how to put my commercial on. Look at that. I found it. I absolutely love that thing. One of my good friends who's a video graphics person put that together for me. He's put several of them together for me, but that's the one I really like because it just, it's all about putting things together and creating the magic. And that's what I think I do in my business. So I thought that was a great representation of what we deal with. Here at Coffee Tea, You and Me, we provide a platform and an opportunity for entrepreneurs and business leaders to come together to chat and talk about anything that they want to talk about. Every week, I choose a topic of some type that I think is exciting, that is interesting, that I think is important. And we're going through right now, the next several weeks, we're in a series and we're going through the 9 steps to masterful professional relationships. And which is a big part of everything I do. If you know me, you know that, I've had to train myself on how to develop professional relationships. Of course, I've taken 1,000 courses and all that kind of stuff, but figuring out how to make these things work for me is something that, I had to do now. Of course, it appeals to my introvert brain to, retool and rethink things and make things a little different in a way that works best for me. And I suggest you do the same thing. Whatever information that you have, that you gather to help with your professional development or your training, try to retool it and then reteach it. That's a process that I'm going to suggest that all of us do. When you learn something, don't just keep it to yourself, share it. Figure out ways to help others with that same information. That does a couple things. It invites you into the community as well as refreshing your mind about what the topic and ideas are all about. So we're going to talk about promises. We're going to share everything with with you guys. And we're also going to talk to my friend, Sarah White. Now, let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah's a rock star in many, many ways. I love her. I love her energy. I love her passion, but I love her passion mostly for people. Now, she happens to be a restaurateur, a very, very, very good consultant when it comes to developing opportunities for food distribution, right? How to make restaurants run well. And she has a wonderful company that she started that help do consultation for restaurant people who want to learn more about how to survive in these tough times. And she's come up with some great things. She's also running for public office, ladies and gentlemen. She wants to be one of our delegates in the state of Virginia. So she's gonna be one of those people that we send down to Richmond to do some good things for the community. And I can't think of a better person that I want in that job, in that role, than Miss Sarah White. So without further ado, let me introduce our audience to Miss Sarah White. Everybody give a round of applause for the boss. Sarah White's in the house. How's it going, Sarah?
That was such a nice introduction. Thank you so much. And I agree on your video. That is so you, putting all the pieces together. I like the one that stirs in the hot chocolate and it all comes together because you stir it up and put it together.
That's good. That's good. So tell us, Sarah, what's going on in the world of restaurant consulting and what are the things that you think people should know?
So first, we should think about the fact that we are hitting light at the end of the tunnel. We are almost there. If those that are still around have made it, you just keep doing what you're doing. Let's get through this. And those who didn't, unfortunately, tomorrow's a new day. Let's start with a new opportunity. And there are a lot of opportunities out there right now for our restaurant friends, or if it's always been your dream of a lifetime to eventually own your own place, hit me up. Let's talk about it. How could we make that happen? And what would that look like? I have budgeting tools and plans to talk you through it to make sure that you get started off on the right foot. So just know that this is, the worst of it is past, I believe. And that's definitely an opinion, but I think that the data bears that out. So we're making it, keep doing it.
That's awesome. So I'm going to put Sarah's information in the chat box for you guys. But for those of you who are in the group right now, if you haven't already, let's go ahead and put your information in the chat. Let's tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're coming from, what company you own, whatever that is, whatever you want to say. In fact, go ahead and put like your 7-second pitch in the chat if you can. Like, answer this question: what is it that you do, and who do you do it for? And if you can, give us a little razzle dazzle, make it sexy, right? So if you're going to say something like, maybe you help entrepreneurs and business leaders, get their act together and do smart things. That's fine. it doesn't matter, but make sure that, put that in the chat so we can identify you. We know where you're coming from. I'm going to do the same so that it'll give you an example, a little bit of a sample. This is me. Boom. And so for those of you who are seeing that on YouTube, you might be seeing a little bit of a disjointed message, but those of you seeing it on Facebook, then you're seeing that, here I am, Coach Powell Training and Development. I'm the creator of the Vision Quest 90 system, the most dynamic personal business and executive coaching system today. Through the use of our world-class technologies and tools, we help growth-oriented business owners, consultants, nonprofit leaders achieve excellence in their chosen endeavors. Join our 90-day program and experience the revolution. That is sort of my elevator pitch, sort of my 7 seconds or 15 seconds of fame, right? See if you can come up with something and post it in the chat. If you can't, don't worry about it. If you can, just tell us if you want to, just tell us who you are and where you're coming from, what city you're coming from, what state you're coming from, what's the name of your business, if possible. And just so we'll give you a little shout out and see if we can't do anything. This is a very, very interactive opportunity. We want you to participate, to play. And so to the extent that you're comfortable, feel free to engage. I know some of you are a little bit like me. You want to sit in the back of the room and see it all put together and keep to yourselves. And that's okay. But understand, we can't benefit from your wisdom and knowledge if you don't share it. And so if you have a question, again, feel free to put that in the chat. If you have a thought, feel free to go ahead and share that. And every once in a while, I'll be asking you for some input and some feedback, because that's very, very critical to our success. We don't know if we're doing good if you don't tell us we're doing good, because I can't see all your faces. I can see Sarah's face, but I can't see all of your faces. So I'm not even getting the benefit of your nonverbals in this. So I want to make sure that you are on board. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about anything right off the bat? Any questions about being in business or some of the things or challenges that you're having? Go ahead and post that information in the chat if possible. And during the break, we'll get around to it. But we're going to start off talking about promises right now. For those of you who are familiar with the 9 steps to relationship mastery, promises is the section of developing business relationship that comes right after listening up. So learning how to listen to the right people, say the right things at the right time is a very, very important relationship development skill. Everybody can't do it. It really requires you to, 1, shut up, 2, open up your mind and your ears to what other people are talking about. And I was watching a program a couple of weeks ago, and the young lady who did an excellent training on networking. But what she said was concerning to me. And then I realized that I've heard this from other people. People are afraid to listen and open up to other people because they don't want to be sold. They don't want people to come with their selfish agenda and moving them in the wrong direction. And what I talked to you guys about last week, for those of you who are here, we talked about learning how to interject that conversation with something that's going to move it in a direction that's more positive, more powerful, more empowering to you. And the way to do that is by asking questions, right? Instead of allowing a person just to get in front of you and for 15, 20 minutes, you may want to inject a question in there that smooths the conversation off of whatever their pre-planned agenda is and onto something that can help you create a relationship with that person. Because nothing is as good as listening to people talk about something that you want to talk about anyway, right? So think about it. What do you like to talk about? What do you like to discover? And find ways to interject those questions into your conversation. I love everything small business, everything involving with small women-owned, minority-owned businesses, whether it's disabled veterans or whatever that is, any type of business that has some historically been, not necessarily paid attention to. I want to know about them. I want to know how people are supporting them. I want to know what people think about supporting them. And so I'm going to inject questions like those into conversations, because I'm going to figure out where they stand. If they think, well, these entrepreneurs are a bunch of nut jobs and they're crazy, then I'm going to know that really quickly, and I want to get away from them. because I absolutely believe in entrepreneurs. I absolutely believe that they are the actual spirit of what it is to be an American today. If you're not trying to be in business for yourself, if you're not interested in supporting others who are in business for themselves, you are ruining what citizenship American style is all about. It's about freedom and the opportunity to express yourself and express your own dignity in a way that's meaningful to you. And there's no more freedom than to be an entrepreneur. In fact, our systems are set up, and I'll get off an economic rant later on, but our systems are set up to really, it's really a feudal lord system that's been placed on top of what we call an American democratic system. Economically, it's all about the lords and the stewards, the haves and the have-nots. It's about the lords and the fiefs. And so either you working for somebody else or you working for yourself. And who's in charge of your life depends on who you're working for. So now you got to ask that question: who are you really working for? And so anyhow, today's topic, and promises, is about two things. Promise comes in two separate categories and two separate ideas. First, it's understanding what to do with the promise that you have in yourself and that you find in others. That means your talents, your gifts, what makes you special, what differentiates you. How do you identify those things? How do you speak to those things? How do you encourage and empower those things? And the second side of it is about the promises that you make, the commitments that you keep. What is it that you're committed to? What is it that you believe in? What is it that, you are willing to struggle and strive and move towards no matter what? Can you keep that promise? And how do you keep that promise? And your ability to articulate and share those ideas and concepts with people are going to be what's necessary in order for them to fall in love with you, in order for them to feel a connection to you that drives the relationship to the next level. I want you to think about it like a lot of times, like you think about, I talked about networking like it's dating. You find somebody that you're either attracted to or you're not. If you're not, there's not very much promise that you can see in whatever interaction that you have with them. And so you're generally not interested, and you don't want to move forward with them because there's nothing going on. There's nothing that they're saying. There's no input that they're giving you. There's nothing, no feedback that they're receiving you, that they get you, they understand you, they want to play with you. Nothing. It's falling flat. It's like talking to somebody who has poker face. They're just continuing to sit there and whether you might even tell a joke and there's nothing.
We've all been on that date where you're just like, okay, so can somebody call me real quick and have an emergency? I gotta go.
Right. That person is making conversation really difficult, because they're not giving up anything that will let you know that, hey, I'm on the right path with you. We're hitting it out of the park. Something's going on that's working, or not. Nothing. You got no input, no feedback. And even worse, you might get bad input and bad feedback. It means I'm really not paying attention to you. Like, they're talking to you and they're looking off in the distance, or you're looking off in the distance, and they got they're like, you can tell they're bored or whatever. That's really not a good. Again, all these things are derail a conversation, which means there's no promise evident. There's no evidence of something that you can hang on to. Like, I remember one of Sarah and I's initial conversations, and she was talking about, getting in business for herself and trying to figure out how that was going to work. And of course, I light up because, wow, we're talking about something that I'm excited about, and we could talk about it. And we did talk about it for quite a while, because it was something that, and because of that made it easier for us to follow up with each other and talk some more.
You could tell that even on a phone conversation, we connected on that. We knew that was going to be something that we had in common and we wanted to work on together. And I ended up becoming a client of yours because of that. And you ended up helping push me into my own business because of that. We knew that we had that in common.
So the promise that we both discovered led us to both make promises to each other that we then kept. Right? That's what has to happen, or the relationship is done. And when you think about networking, you think about building relationships, I don't care whether it's a potential mentor or a coach or a trainer or a consultant or advisor or a therapist, there must be that process where promise is discovered and then promise is made. And that has to be a continuing process for relationships to stay on track, for them to be available and consistent. And if you don't have that, because every time, a person is it's just, imagine being Venus and Serena's father and realizing that what he has, he's got daughters that are older than them, but what he has in these two could be something amazing. He can only imagine the possibility. He can't really understand it, but he can see that, there's some gifts and some talents here. And if we nurture these gifts and talents, they could go some great places. So let's just see. Pretty soon he was committed. He understood that if he kept working with these girls, they would be world-class tennis players and unbeatable for, just, and who knew that even Serena's career would last as long as it has lasted. I don't know very many tennis professionals who've been able to do it at the level she's been able to do it for as long as she's been able to do it. And I follow racket sports of all types, so it's one of those things. Think about that. That's exactly the process that every relationship goes through. There's a discovery of something special that somebody makes a commitment to then go, you know what? I'm going to go a little deeper with this. I'm going to dig in a little deeper with this, and I'm going to see where this can take us.
Well, I like that you brought it from the relationship when you may go on a first date and how that comes from, or a parent to a child and looking for promise. Like, we look for promise in our everyday life for people in our personal life all the time. So it's looking for that business promise as well, that
Exactly.
whether it's networking, whether it's actual work together, but promise of any type needs to be expanded. And I love that you're doing it in your program to not just be a personal life.
Exactly. And when it comes to small business, it's personal. It's always personal because small business leaders don't have the time for it not to be personal. If you're going to get some personal time with small business leader, it better be productive. We better be doing something that's going to move things forward, because we're not spending time, just for the sake of spending time. My daughter said to me the other day, Dad, what do you do for fun? And I'm like, I work for fun. What do you mean? She goes, but you never talk about like taking a break or taking a vacation. I'm like, yeah, I take vacations when your mother forces me to. But for me, I love what I do. It is what I do to rejuvenate. It is what I do to, get myself going again. It's relaxing to me to do what I do. And I guess, of course, she's only 21. She doesn't learn that, when you put more than 10,000 hours into developing any level of expertise, you pretty much know that you enjoy it. It's not a question as to whether or not this is fun for you anymore. You put enough effort into it, even if it wasn't fun to begin. By the time you finish, it's fun because you're just so good at it. You just like, let me figure out how I can do it even better. You can see some of the plaques on the back of my walls. Racquetball certificates and stuff like that from being certified to teach racquetball, or other things that I've done in my life and in the past. But trying to be good at something requires effort and energy, and you don't do it because somebody else told you to do it. You do it because it's just the right thing, the smart thing to do, because you discovered even in yourself you have talent. Which brings me to another point I want to make. On the side of promise, where we're talking about your talents and your gifts, I would suggest for everybody who's on the call, who's listening, do a talent assessment. Really, really look at yourself and ask yourself the question, what am I good at? Perform what we call a SWOT analysis on yourself. Write down your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities that you see in front of you, and the threats that you see in front of you. And then start to analyze those things. Now, what you'll discover if you start doing this is that your strengths will automatically have a weakness on the opposite of the strengths. So if you're a good listener, you probably don't speak very well. If you're good at leading, you probably don't follow very well. You know, if you're good at following, and you probably don't lead very well. You know, so whatever your strengths are, look for the opposite and see, because you're going to need to find people who can cover your weaknesses and support your strengths. So people who can cover your weaknesses, by and large, by doing that, actually support your strengths. They give you room for you to do whatever it is you're good at. So entrepreneurs have this crazy thing where they have to do so many different things. The thing is, though, you don't have to be good at all things that you do, and you don't have to do all things alone. That's the problem with most entrepreneurs. You know, they learn that it's got to be my way or the highway, or they learn to have this autocratic thought process, and they don't learn how to collaborate and how to communicate in a way that creates an energy that they could never have come up with by themselves. So part of promises. Go ahead, Sarah. You have something you want to say?
It's a big restaurant point that you just made. Can you imagine if the same person had to seat you at your table, take your order, get your things, go make your food, bring it back to you? Like, what would that look like? That would be a nightmare. And I've noticed that in managers that might be struggling, might have some opportunities for advancement, the first thing that they do if something fails is say, well, I'm going to do that from now on. Right. And then somebody else might not do something the way that you wanted it done. And you say, okay, well, I'm going to do that job now. And pretty soon you look around and you're holding all of it yourself, and you're not empowering your team to do what they do. Training somebody else to do the job the way that you need it done is way more effective, or being open to their way if their way might be better than yours. It doesn't happen to me very often. I'm not saying that, but it may have happened once that somebody had a great idea over mine. But no, it's definitely about empowering your team and getting them to work together. So I have to find people that have strengths in different areas of the restaurant to be on one team. If I put all players that are great in the front of the house, you're going to get the greatest front of the house experience. You're going to get great service, but your food probably isn't going to be that fantastic. So it's about, like you said, building that team from strengths and weaknesses. And I've actually completely taken your approach to hiring team members.
That's awesome. And I think that, you know, and you're absolutely right. You know, what we call division of labor, really, we only think about happening at sort of the MBA level institutionalized businesses, right? So when you got people coming in and you got like 5 different people, right? You got your HR, you got your marketing, you got your financial people, you got, you know, your operations, and, you know, finally you got your executive leadership, right? All these different 5 areas are trying to come together and do what they do together. That's great. They all got teams of people working underneath them. But when you're an entrepreneur, guess what? You know, you're the marketing, you're the sales, you're the operations, but you have to be good at identifying other people who have that gift and the skills. And even if it's something that you're good at, let them do it. Go work on something else. If you find somebody who's good at marketing, let them do the marketing. If you find somebody that's good at sales, let them do the sales. You know, I remember I did a little restaurant training when I was younger, and I was in the executive, you know, training program for Denny's, right? And I ran the 3rd shift for the store around my college area in Kent State University. And for a couple years, as a matter of fact, I did that and paid my way through school. And I realized in the training, you know, you come into the training with a leaning, right? Either you're good in service, or you're good at cooking, or you're good at, you know, operations management, or whatever that is. You can run the profit and loss numbers really good. Either way, it doesn't matter how you come in. You're gonna lean on your strengths, but you're gonna learn food quality, and you're gonna learn how to, you know, assess whether the kitchen is doing well or not doing well. You're gonna learn how to look at the service situation. You're gonna learn all that when they put you in the management fast track. And the process, you also learn that, yeah, you might be able to run the restaurant by yourself for a couple seconds, right? But as soon as you get 1 or 2 customers in the space, and then you're done, because you can't handle it all. You just can't. It's impossible. Even the best, cooks can't cook the food, serve the food, take the next order, start that and serve the other food. And, it just can't be done. Making sure everything is the highest quality, everything's going to fall apart as soon as that ever happens. So division of labor is something that's important everywhere, not just in restaurants. It's important everywhere. And entrepreneurs who are holding on, business leaders who are holding on to some process or some part of their business will never get out of doing that. They'll always be doing that. And that's the thing. Like you said, Sarah, you might say, well, I'm going to do this for now. You might even say, I'm going to do it for now. No, you're not going to do it for now. You're going to end up doing it all the time.
Mm-hmm. This time I'm going to place the order myself this time. Right. And then the next time you're like, well, I still didn't train anybody. Okay, I'm going to do it one more time. It never turns into one or two times. It turns into forever. Right. And I like what David said in the comments about everybody doing it for credit. That's another thing that I like to point out in the restaurant is that if I bring it back and say something's wrong with this, I don't care who did it wrong. Right. We need to fix it. And if I bring something out and we did it perfect, it doesn't matter who did it right. We're a team. So right. It's just a team atmosphere. I love that your name is Coach Powell. Right. You do create that team atmosphere.
Absolutely. Have to. Because if I don't, we're all there. So, it's a cliche, but I'm going to say it. We're stronger together than we are apart. And when we recognize that, I used to have a problem with understanding what this whole diversity thing was all about. Now, I know some people are like, well, this Black guy doesn't understand diversity. Yes, that's true. Right. I'm like, I see it as I used to see it as a social need. It looks right. It's like the right thing to do. But I couldn't come up with a real business reason for it to happen until I actually got some training myself and realized that the best ideas come when everybody is bringing ideas to the table and those ideas are respected. So now if I got ideas from old people, young people, Black people, white people, Asian people, I got disabled people, I got all kinds of people that are involved in a process, then the best ideas are for sure going to come to the table, or most likely, I should say, are going to come to the table, which means if we need to differentiate our team, or we need to differentiate ourselves and be better than whatever our competitors are or our compadres, then we're going to do a better job. My buddy Jeff, who's an amazing leader, says, none of us are as smart as all of us. And that is so true.
Well, and does that not make you want to fulfill that promise of being better? When I'm on a team of people that I think I perceive to be smarter than me or better than me at something, I want to fulfill the promise of being on this team by being better, by learning from the people around me, by figuring out what talent or skill I have that I am bringing to this team. You've clearly invited me here for a reason. Let me live up to it.
That is so true. That is so true. Jeff threw that one in here too. An inclusive environment, the organization will thrive if the environment is inclusive. And he's so right about that. There's so many things that I think you learn in leadership that you can't get sort of when you're not in leadership. And I'm gonna put it that way. But the thing is, everybody is in leadership if you think about it. Every person is leading through their strengths. And if you really think about what your strong are, you really do that assessment I suggested earlier, you're going to come up with gifts and talents for yourself. Now, here's the problem. A lot of times people can't see their own strengths. They can't see their own gifts. Guess what? There are people who love you who might actually tell you the truth if you ask them. Right? Think about that. Ask the friends and associates around you, professional and non-professional, it doesn't really matter. What is it that they know for a fact they can rely on you for?
That might have been the scariest thing that you had me do when we worked together, is that you said, go out and ask your friends, your family, your colleagues, different people that know you from different areas of your life. What are your strengths and your weaknesses? Like, what do they see that you might not see? And I got to say, that was the most terrifying thing that I did, because you have to be ready for the answers. And I was so pleasantly surprised. And they pointed out opportunities I had that I didn't see and probably wouldn't have seen on my own. But they also pointed out strengths that I didn't realize I had either.
Isn't that amazing? That's crazy, right? And then I always tell, of course, we talked about feedback. Remember, we had that conversation. Without the feedback, you don't know where you're relevant, where you're meaningful, where you're significant. Because if you're getting it and you're not getting it from feedback, then you're making it up yourself, right? You're telling yourself, I'm wonderful, I'm great, I'm brilliant, I'm beautiful, whatever that is. And that's all good. You need to give yourself some self-esteem, some positive rewards, blah, 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 blah. But nothing beats other people who you know, like, and trust, people who you respect, saying to you, I can always depend on you for boom, 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 boom. You are one of the best I've ever seen at whatever that is, whatever it is. And it's oftentimes stuff that you would have never thought. You'd have never thought. Sarah knows this. I think we talked about it in some of our sessions. But when I was a kid, I found that I was fabulous at making friends. Just flat out gifted at that thing, making new friends, making new contacts, and so on and so forth. And I didn't realize it until I was well into my 20s that people just fell in love with me. They just kind of attached themselves to me, whether I wanted them to or not. That kind of happened, and I'm like, but why does this happen to me? How can I? Because I was trying to get rid of a few people, and I was trying to understand this, and I realized that I have a tendency of being interested in others. If I meet you, I'm going to find something about you that I'm interested in. I'm going to ask questions like no one else has ever asked you questions before. I'm going to make you think about things you've never thought about before. And so therefore, I'm going to get the credit for having exposed you to the greatness in yourself that you maybe not have seen before. Not that I found it. I just asked you questions that help you find it. Now, all of a sudden, people are like, oh my God, he's great. I didn't do anything except ask questions. I may have, if Jeff and I go back to my young fraternity days at college, and I may have said, hey, Jeff, you want me to teach you that step? You want me to teach you how this process works and so on and so forth? And he would say either yes or no if he was interested. And if he was interested, then we do something together. And he's like, he couldn't have done it without me. They were friends. We're cool. That's how that is. Because you find things that people are interested in and you find ways to do that with them. Now, I'm not going to talk to Jeff about something he's not interested in or try to force him into a box he's not excited about. That would be no fun for me.
Right. Well, and it's like David said, if you're interested in others, then they'll be interested in you. And I never really put that all together. I love people. I'm the golden retriever of people. I love to meet everybody. You keep saying I can't meet everybody on the planet, but I'm not sure you're correct. I'm going to keep trying.
I want you to try. Let me know how it goes.
Okay. And, it's asking those questions. And I was like, I just love making friends. And somebody pointed out to me one day, and that's why people like you.
That's right. That's exactly why people like you. And it's no more magical than going back to, I remember when I was 10. I'm a military brat, so I had to learn how to make friends every 2 years because there was no old friends. There were no cliques for me to bring with me. I had to create them. I had to join them. I had to find my way inside the inside group all the time. And so it was nothing for me. My mother would kick me out of the house. It was nothing for me to take my basketball or football and start knocking on doors around the neighborhood to kids I saw. I may have saw a kid walk in there from school, a young kid who was either a year or two older than me or a year or two younger than me. I saw them go in that house, so I know they must live there. I go knock on the door, and I said, listen, is there a kid in here? And then people would go, what do you mean? You talking about Jimmy? Yeah, Jimmy. Can Jimmy come out and play? When do you want to play basketball or football or something? Because I got kicked out of the house. Sometimes they would go, so what's your name, young man? I would say, well, my name is Marvin. And then boom, next thing you know, Jimmy's outside playing with me. And he's introducing me to the other kids in the neighborhood. Because I was not afraid of, I didn't have time to be worried about rejection. I just needed to play with somebody. I needed to have somebody to talk to, somebody to share with, some moment to have. And then I got good at that. I got good at making sure it was appropriate. I wasn't knocking on some stranger's doors and all that kind of stuff. But I got, I learned the social cues from the feedback. Sometimes I would get from my mom, well, Jimmy's on punishment right now. He can't come out. For nobody, not even for you, you cute little kid. No, he can't come out for you either. But I learned that, okay, so maybe this was an inappropriate time. Maybe I gotta not when the parents aren't home yet. And it's just the kids in the house. And so like that, right after school, right? That was the perfect time. Oh, catch them before they went into the door in the first place. But you learn, again, same thing in the professional world. If somebody is if you're in a networking event for somebody, even if it's a Zoom call, and they look like they're warm and friendly and engaging, get them in the private chat. DM them on the download. Nobody else has to know that you're having a good time and you're noticing something. Like you might say, okay, wow, I love that plaque behind your wall. What's that all about? In the DM. And people go, oh yeah, that's an old property deed or whatever it is back there, and so on and so forth. But it's a conversation piece. It's something for people to reflect on and connect around that's different than whatever's going on in the actual meeting. Now, of course, I said, like, you all know that I'm an introvert. I like to peel people off from the herd. And I don't want to jump in the herd. I want to come out, get to the private moment where we can do some real play for me. Some
you
people
have to love that it is easier to pass notes now. Like, it was not easy in school. You're always getting caught. The teacher wanted to read them out loud. Like, you have to be loving that you could pass notes very privately now.
Absolutely. I can get into a private chat on the Zoom call or whatever I'm using, and all of a sudden now, I'm talking to the person in private. Nobody else can see what's going on. My boy Warren's in the house. Greeting from Prague. He's coming in from Prague. This is amazing. Okay, so guys, let's talk about talent. How do you recognize other people's talents? What do you do when you notice something special about some other professional? And I go back to that SWOT analysis I just talked to you about. Maybe there's a weakness that you have, but you find that somebody else has a strength in that area. How do you approach it? What do you do? What do you say? What's the process? If anybody has any clue, go ahead and throw that in the chat. In the meantime, I will throw that question out to Sarah. What do you do when you find some people who are just gifted?
So, we find this all the time, right? So all different walks of life walk into a restaurant for a job. They might be here for a minute. They might be here for life. And you don't know that coming in because it just attracts everybody. And I love that about it. Mm-hmm. But you'll see promise in certain people in certain areas that they don't see in themselves yet. And that is my favorite part, because you get to start not only having that conversation point blank with them about it, but also putting them in things that from experience. I've been in the restaurant industry for 20 years, that I know from experience are going to make that better, more pronounced. It's going to give them practice at what they're best at. If you are a people person and I put you in the kitchen, you're not going to love it. You're not going to get what you need to really experience the best of you. So when you see those people, and those people that just have that service heart and are just oriented to take care of everyone, getting them, maybe they applied as a host, and that's great. We want you to say hi and meet everybody, but you're going to love serving too. So how can I train you up and get you into something that you are going to love, you're going to be fantastic at? And even if, say, you're only here for a while, this isn't the rest of your life, you're going to take those skills and that development into everything you do for the rest of your life.
That is so true. That is so true. I think I got my first service training as a paper boy in the Washington metropolitan area. I delivered the Washington Star. That's an old magazine, that old paper that doesn't exist anymore. And then I when it died, I switched to the Post. And so I had several delivery routes. But then I got my first real job at McDonald's, and I became king in the drive-thru. Saturday and Sunday mornings at my local McDonald's, if you came through there, you were seeing me in that drive-thru. And I was bored to tears, so I would have fun. I would sing music. I was in there. I'd be dancing in the drive-thru. People would come through like, oh, who is this guy? He's a lot of fun. And he's a lot of energy and so on and so forth. And I would upsell like nobody's business, because I was literally having fun at my job, and it rubbed off on other people. And, I was like, because, once you figured out how to give change and put the right pictures in and all that kind of stuff, it's the system was pretty easy. So there was nothing else for you to do except for figure out how you can do it faster, better, smarter. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to upsell everybody that comes through the window. Everybody I talk to, I'm upselling them. And so I had to learn. Would you like some golden fries with that? How about a crisp, golden apple pie with that? How about a beautiful, I think you want a shake. It sounds to me like you want one of those triple thick chocolate shakes. That would be great, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be good to wash that down when people go, yeah, give me 3 of them. give me some of them chicken McNuggets too. Next thing you know, and people are like, how does he get so many sales? Well, I took my time. I talked to people because it wasn't just about the order. It was about the experience. That's when I first got a whiff to understand that the food business is an entertainment business.
Oh, yeah.
This is not, just something you go order your food, you sit down and you eat. No. You chose to do this versus something else that might be fun in your life, and it just so happens that you got some food here too. If it's good, that's great. But if the ambiance is right, the music is right, the atmosphere is right, the social thing is right, you're coming back.
Well, and I love that you point out the entertainment value. Mm-hmm. I have someone who is now a manager for me. You're going to understand after the story that he probably should have been fired at some point, but he would go up to his tables when he was waiting tables, and the first thing out of his mouth would always be, and I just want to let you know we're out of the mashed potatoes. Well, if you've ever eaten one of my restaurants, we don't have mashed potatoes. It was his way of trying to break the ice with you. And some people loved it and thought he was hysterical. And some people were like, well, I wanted mashed potatoes. They don't have mashed potatoes? What? They're so confused. So we had to find that he's the comedian of the group. He at least thinks he's very funny. And where could we put him? And we ended up putting him behind the bar. Right. People there are looking to joke with you. They're looking to have a good time. They wouldn't be here if they weren't going to laugh at your jokes. And you're going to laugh at theirs too, because that's who you are. So it's about finding that talent and putting it where it goes.
Exactly. Finding the talent and putting it where it goes. So when we talk about the 5 things that other people can do for you in the networking world, and one of those things is being a promoter for you. And a promoter is a person who can see that you're special, but you're on the wrong stage. Mm-hmm. And they can put you on the right stage because they already have those relationships, right? You don't want a promoter who doesn't have relationships. You want a promoter, who already has the right relationships to get you to the right place. You're running for office right now. We need to put you in front of some big donors. And we need to make them fall in love with you.
From your lips.
If we don't, then, that's just going to be less money you have in your war chest. And let's just be real. The more money you have in your war chest, the better you can do when it comes to putting the word out about what it is who you are and what it is you stand for. Because there's no getting around that. You got to figure out ways to market and advertise your brand.
And when you started teaching me how to network and who to meet and what circles to jump into, and let's be realistic, I jump into all the circles, but you helped me target what was for what, like the round table. I get more referrals out of the round table. I love being there, but I've also made the most friends that I see weekly. I talk to daily from the group, and it's learning what each one of those groups are, because now, like you said, running for office, it's using the connections in those groups for what we've now built a relationship out of, and saying, hey, we've talked about this. I know you do this. I know you have these people. Can you make an introduction for me? Or can you invite me to your group next week so that I can get to know some other people? Or can I be a speaker for you? And it wouldn't have happened if we hadn't started with learning who your people are and making sure that you know them well enough to do that later.
Right. And let's just go ahead and call it a win. You're going to be there, right? When you're there, you're going to need to have the right people around you, to keep the party going. You're going to need people who, you're going to have a lot of appointments to make. You're going to have a lot of committees that you're going to have to suggest a lot of people get on. And so the more you know about their passions and their strengths right now, the easier it's going to be for you to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to make some nominations for, I don't know, the Small Business Commission or Small Business Council of the state of Virginia. I'm going to get a chance to nominate some people. Is that something that you're interested in? Of course, I'm going to say yes, you know, when you say that to me, because then I'm going to go, how much money can I raise for you?
Right.
You know, because you're playing to my strengths. Back to what we talked about earlier. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. The more you're able to articulate and know those things, the more you're able to see them and identify them and matches with other people and create synergy. But if you all, go ahead.
Look at Olia in our group. She
Mm-hmm.
is just a super connector of people. It's what
Mm-hmm.
she loves to do. She's got a very clear talent for it. And it's about not only being able to do that now in business life, because we all want to know people that we can recommend, not just to help our friends out, but because it makes you look good. When you
Right.
recommend somebody that really takes care of somebody else, it makes you look good and feel good about doing it. But it's carrying that same thing into public life, as a public servant and saying, but I have a guy, I have a girl, I know somebody who's going to be great for that. And if you don't make those connections now, when you go back to that well to say, what do I have? You don't have anybody on the bench for it.
That's so true. That is so true. I want to, if we could, take some questions or make sure that everybody, if you haven't had a chance, to put your name and where you're coming from in the chat so we can give you a shout out if possible. I know I'm seeing a lot of people out there already, which is great. And again, if you have any questions about anything you've identified or talked about in the past, feel free to go ahead and espouse on that or anything. I know a lot of you all are excellent leaders already in your own right, and you've been around the block a couple times. So if there's a lesson learned that you want to share with identifying and promoting other people's talents and strengths, as well as being able to make the commitment to others in a way that makes sense, go ahead and share that. I know for a fact that, one of the reasons why I love my fraternity and my fraternity brothers is because we're all committed to doing everything we can to uplift the culture. We're all committed to making sure that we're good, solid citizens. We give every effort to help support the communities we live in, and that's something that's a part of what we promise to do when we say we want to belong to this organization, and the organization backs us up. So if we need to do something, and so that's just about that's who we are, and we're a different kind of group. Like we'll say quite a bit, we are an inclusive group, not an exclusive group, which means we're not in it for us, we're in it for everybody. That's who we are. We have that servant's heart, that servant's mentality. But those are things that we value so much that we make it a part of our identity, our personality, how we express ourselves. Everybody has values. Everybody has principles, right? Principles don't change, but values do. You choose the values, and so we all have those values that we feel like they need to have a place. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you now is because when you're talking about your gifts and your talents, when you're trying to help people understand what you're really all about, but you don't talk about what's important to you, your values, then they miss what they really need to have in order to trust you. Right? So for those of you who know me, I create tons of content about almost everything in professional development you can think of. I've got something that I've already created, written, taught, and began to, and now I'm just refining it, right? And so if somebody's having a conversation with me and they're going, I have a problem with learning. I'm going to go, you know what? I created a program that can help you with that. Would that be something that you'd be interested in? That, if I could share it with you, would that be something you're interested in? And they'll go, well, sure. I'll go, then I'll go, okay, I want to share it with you, but here's the thing. I'm going to give it to you for free. I'm not going to charge you anything, but here's what I need you to do for me. I need you to promise and commit that you will give me your feedback on it. And most people will say yes to that. So I'll give it to them. It'll be a 5 or 6 page training document or manual that with links and all that kind of stuff to explain, what this is in, where it came from, and all that kind of good stuff. And they'll look at it, and we'll follow up. We'll set an appointment to follow up, and then I'll get the feedback from them. And they'll tell me whether they thought it sucked or whether it was good. Or, but they won't tell me it sucked generally because they don't really want to tell me, but I can figure it out from the nonverbals. I can figure out from the nonverbal cues, like, it really didn't hit the way I thought it was going to hit. Then I'll ask the question, even if they said it was amazing, how can I make it better?
Right.
How can I make it better? If that's your attitude, if your attitude is, I want to be better, I want to get better, I want to do better, I want to be, and you don't say it, the assumption is that it's going to be that, okay, you think you're all that, you're great right now. And I never want that to happen, because I believe that, continuous growth is something that we all should aspire to. That's a value of mine. So I can say that I believe in continuous growth and I really want to grow. Or I can say, listen, I'm trying to get better at, everything I do. And this is just another thing. I would really love it and appreciate that. And I trust you enough to give me the straight, honest feedback. So would you please do that for me? And most people are going to say yes. Let's talk about why. Why do you think people would say yes if you ask them a question like that, in that way? Anybody have any thoughts or any ideas?
I'm going to relate this to exactly what I had in the point for basically the last thing you were talking about. If you have a friend and you walk out of the house and your shirt is on backward and they didn't say anything, are they really your friend? People give you feedback because if I say to a stranger who doesn't know me on the street, is there anything in my teeth? They're going to answer. People want to give you feedback. They want their opinion to be valued and to help other people generally. So I feel like it's the same quandary we find ourselves in for appearance is the same for business.
Yes. So there's 2 things I want to leave you guys with. One is all of us have attention deficit, meaning we don't get enough attention from others. We simply don't. If we got enough, then we probably would be like, okay, I don't want to know anymore from other people. I don't really want to hear anything anywhere from them. But think about that. How else, without the feedback, do we know that we're meaningful, significant, or relevant in any moment of our lives? Because if we don't have feedback from some other people, then aren't we just making it up? Aren't we just basing it on past moments of glory? I don't know about you, Sarah, but I know a lot of people who live in the past. They live in that time when I did something significant. That time when I did something special. And they can't wait to share that with you, as if they have nothing going on today and nothing going on in the future. Like, you know what? You're not as much fun to talk to as somebody who's actually doing something right now.
If you played basketball in college and you're my age and you're telling me that, then
exactly.
Maybe we got to work on something. I don't know.
Right. Please tell me that you're not still that kid, from college. That's funny. It's just so true. What does David have to say? What I figured out when I was asking, I'm going to go ahead and post that. Mr. Sangupta says, what I figured out when I was asking about my strengths and weaknesses, I figured out my weakness is people are scared to tell me anything, but I don't know why it is so. So, and that brings me to another point that I make out in the training, David. You really have to work hard to get people to tell you the honest truth when it comes to giving you feedback, because most of our cultures we're taught that criticism is bad. Criticizing others is bad. Being critical is bad. We don't want to do it, and we don't want to give anybody bad news. We all want to give everybody the rose-colored glasses. We all want to give everybody good news and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, the good news doesn't help them grow. And so you have to kind of go overboard more than you thought. Especially people who are close to you, people who you love, they're not going to tell you the truth right off the bat. You got to tell them, listen, I need you to tell me the truth. It is critically important. I promise, you have to make this promise. I will not hold it against you. I will not say anything bad. I won't even feel any sort of way about this. I will just take it as feedback. I may make adjustments. I may not make adjustments, but I will thank you anyway for taking the time and giving the effort to tell me the truth. It is very difficult, specifically for people who you think you might be a mentor to you. It's hard for you to ask them for the truth often, because their job basically is to criticize you. Their job is, if they're saying they want to be your mentor, they're guiding you and directing. And in guiding and directing anybody into anything, there is a level of superiority. There's a level of authority. There is a level of commitment that they make to leading you in the correct path. So that also means, as a protege, I hate the word mentee. Let's go with protege. As a protege, then you either do what your mentor asks you to do and learn the things that they have for you to learn, or reject it and not necessarily learn the things they have for you to learn, because you decided for yourself that you got a different path or a different way. So I say all this to say, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, have you found that it's also, we assume that it's harder to give feedback to people that are very aggressive personalities?
Oh, yeah.
But I find the opposite is actually harder for me. Like, it might be hard to give somebody that you feel might not take it well, the feedback, but somebody who's really, really nice is almost even harder to give that feedback to, because you almost feel like you're going to break them or something, and you don't want to do that.
Right. It's very difficult. The feedback conversation is very, very difficult, especially when it's not necessarily good news. All right. But it's important to have. And here's my thing. If you care about that person, tell them the truth.
If you tell them from a place of love, you tell them from a place of wanting them to get better.
Right.
You should be able to break the bad news, as long as you're, putting it in a way that's constructive.
Especially if they ask for it.
Right.
If they ask you for it, they want it. Right. And there's an indication that they want it. They're not going to hold you accountable for their feelings, about it, beyond the first few minutes. I mean, your first initial reaction might be, oh, I can't believe they said that to me, whatever that is. But other than that, they'll get past it if they understand that this is where you're coming from. You're coming from a place of love, just like you said. And also, I guess it's very, very important to not second guess this whole process. Everybody learns. We all learn from other people. There is nothing that any one of us knows about anything that we didn't get from somebody else. So think about that. Even if you're an infant and you looking at these people, these big people walking around, and they're running and jumping and doing all kinds of things, but you can't yet. You can't even articulate that you want to do it yet. But guess what? You want it. You want to walk. You want it. And then certain of all, somebody comes around, they hold your hands and help you stay stable. And pretty soon you start to figure out, hey, I can put one foot in front of the other and not worry about falling down. Maybe this is possible for me. And you try a little harder and you give it a little. So it's all feedback. It's all feedback. And you got to take feedback. And I'm glad you mentioned that, David. You got to take feedback from 360 degrees, from people that you follow as well as people that you mentor. If you don't, then let me ask this. There's a question. I want to take feedback from my team members, but what I think is that just because I'm in a higher rank, they do not want to tell me anything. That's true, David. They don't. They don't want to, but you have to actually make it a big deal. As soon as somebody does tell you something that is difficult and had that, celebrate them in front of the rest of the team. And say, you know what, whoever it was took the risk and, gave me some really critical feedback. I really appreciate it. Even if you don't like the feedback, or if you don't really want You're not going to follow it, because just because somebody gives you feedback, you don't have to follow it. But what you do when they give it to you is you make a big deal out of it. You celebrate it. You say thank you. And you do it, if it's in the team thing, you do it publicly, because you want everybody to know that, you're open for the feedback. You're open for the feedback business. You are in the feedback business. A lot of times my clients would come to me and they would go, I don't know if I really, can meet your criteria to be one of your clients. And I'm like, well, let's talk about it. And because a part of my criteria is you're not going to be a client of mine if you're going to keep me a secret. If you're just going to say, I got Coach Powell in my back pocket and I'm not going to tell anybody else about him or whatever that is, or give him, no, you're not going to be a client of mine, because I need the brand to keep going. And it keeps going through the people that I work with. And so guess what? That's a deal breaker. But it's also going to be, I need your feedback. If you refuse to give me feedback, if you refuse to talk to other people about me, then no, you can't be a client of mine. And that's for no money. I can't keep my track record going if people don't agree to those terms. So up front in the relationship, they know that I'm going to be asking for lots of feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm going to be asking for lots of feedback, and I'm going to be asking them to share me with other people. And so that's a part of my contract. I don't want to work with people who want to keep me a secret. I'm not interested. That's not fun, because that means I got to spend money in marketing that I don't want to spend. So it's just better, it works better if my clients will say to their friends, oh my God, I got this great coach. He's amazing. You should work with him. You should give him a shot. Let him, just talk to him. He won't bite your head off. Well, he might bite a little bit, but it'll be the nicest bite you ever had, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's very, very important. When you set the stage like you're going to participate in it. My mother used to say, start with people like you're going to finish. So think about your employees, David. Think about them down the road when they're coming to whatever your retirement party or your business sales party or your victory party, whatever that is. What do you want them to say about you? I got this. I want you to know I didn't steal this. This comes from Dr. Stephen Covey, who says, begin with the end in mind. When he wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he reminded us that nobody on their deathbed is mad about that last result on their corporate performance plan. No, they're upset that they didn't give people their flowers while they lived. They're upset that people that they thought loved them are not showing up the way they should, because they actually resent them. That's why they're not showing up. And they didn't do good with their relationships. And so in order to prevent that from happening, be the kind of person that's open for feedback everywhere, even with your children, your family, from everybody. Because if you start that habit of asking for and getting feedback, then people will begin the habit of supporting you and figuring out ways to get on your team and be a part of your success, not necessarily part of your problem. But until you engage, you won't have it. There's a lot of books. There's one book I want to make, and I can tell Sarah's brow is furrowing. She has something she wants to say. But there's a book I want to recommend to you all called Crucial Conversations. If you haven't read it, it's an amazing, amazing book. Of course, I have a ferocious appetite for training and development material. And that book, Crucial Conversations, is probably one of the best books I've ever written to teach people how to deal with these conflicts that they think they have, mostly in your own mind. Because people are a lot more open than you believe that they are. They all want to be, and that you can take this to the bank. Everybody wants to be meaningful. Everybody wants to be significant. Everybody wants to be relevant. And anything you can do to help them feel that way, by listening to them, talking to them, sharing information with them, they're all going to be thankful for that. It's just going to work. We're naturally hardwired for this. So prime the pump and get the feedback. Go ahead, Sarah. What you had to say?
Well, my answer for David's question would be, in a restaurant setting and, as a chief operations officer for a few restaurants, I have to be selective in who I ask for the feedback from, because if it's an employee that started last week, I might be able to ask them how their training process went, but I can't ask for feedback on me because they don't know me. And if it's somebody who, doesn't have that kind of relationship with me, or maybe doesn't work with me often enough, they don't really have the right feedback to give me. So it's definitely finding somebody who's spent enough time with me to have feedback to give me. And then it's also making sure that we've known each other enough to have built up the trust that they know they can tell me.
Right. And that's a developmental process. People say like trust takes a long time. I buck that idea all the time. I don't think trust takes a long time. I think trust takes the right time. Now, how do you get to the right time? You get to the right time by engaging as meaningfully, as powerful, as significantly as you possibly can in every interaction you have with that person right up front. And the more time you waste trying to figure things out and try to feel them out and, kind of dance around and have what I call small talk. Small talk never leads to big talk. Big talk leads to bigger talk. If you start talking a conversation, you're having conversations about the weather and their favorite football team or whatever that is, that's all you're ever going to talk about with that person. It's going to be a long time before you make the transition to talking about something that's meaningful. The sooner you make that transition from small talk to big talk, the sooner you can get into a real relationship and you can start moving things forward.
I've actually put a time limit on the small talk on how it goes. As soon as we find common ground. So I like this football team. You like that football team. Okay, that didn't work. And I'm not really a football fan. I'm a hockey fan. So that's not going to be our connection. But we both like this kind of food. Yes. All right. We found common ground. Next step. Let's talk about something more in depth. Here's what I do. Here's what you do. Here's how those might make one of my favorite groups. They talk about work babies. Like if my work got together with your work, what would they come up with? And so we start talking on that level. Okay, we found that out. We know where we're at, or we know that kid's going to be ugly. That ain't never going to work. So, but you figured out what that level looks like. Okay, well then how can we expand our relationship? What is our relationship going to be going forward? So it's just time limits for those levels and knowing when you've reached your saturation for that particular level.
That's amazing. That is so good. I'm so glad I have you on the show today. Oh my God, it's so much more fun than doing this by myself. And you are so much fun to have. It's like you're just an excellent guest. That's great. I got one more question I want to throw out to the team. Let's see where this is. How do you deal with the others? And what I mean by the others is people who don't look like you, who don't think like you, who don't come from the same place you come from. How do you deal with them if you think that there's somebody who you might want to collaborate with in the future, or that you're somebody that they need to collaborate with in the future? How do you deal with that promise? How do you make them promises that you can keep?
That's my favorite question that anybody has ever asked, ever. That is my favorite. As working in politics, people always say, oh, well, before you knock on any doors or you go to any groups, let's research it and make sure that they agree with everything you have to say. Let's make sure that they look like you and behave like you and that they're like you. They're going to like you when you get there. And I'm always like, okay, can you please write that list out for me and throw it away? Those people already like me. I don't have to get those people. Yes, we'll say hi. I'd love to drop by and get to know them, but I don't need to spend my effort there. We already know, like, and trust each other. Now, this other group that you said avoid at all costs, can you get me an appointment there? Right. Like, let's go. Because one, being willing to talk to somebody is half the battle. Being willing to figure out what you have alike is half of that battle. Right. And then once you discover that, and I think that's not to get too political, but I think that's definitely what's wrong with the right and the left situation we've got going on right now, is that everybody's like, oh, I'm not talking to them. When it's, that's not going to get us anywhere. That's not a solution to anything. So even if it's business, it's finding out, I don't know what we have in common. And even as I figure out what we don't have in common, the list is extensive, but there's always something. You're two human beings. You'll always find something. And the best way to make sure that you preserve that relationship, like you said, for the future, when you know that you're going to need them or they're going to need you, the best way to preserve that is to acknowledge those things that you can work on, or that you see that they do well, or make sure that they know of something that you do well, so that when that time comes, they can be like, I didn't like some of what she said, but I really liked that.
Exactly. And that is the difference, I think, in so many people's attitude, is that if you don't look at others as others in the first place, it's so much easier to embrace and to create a warm environment where everyone feels friendly and everyone feels like they can be themselves. But if you look at it as an adversarial opportunity and all you want is the easy win, the easy dunk, you're cutting off, I think, to me, you're cutting off your own personal growth by suggesting that if they don't look like me, talk like me, think like me, act like me, walk like me, then there's nothing for me to learn from them, and there's nothing for them to learn from me. Well, I think that's a lie. Is it more difficult? Yes. Does it require more patience? Yes. Does it mean like maybe you'll have to get around some language barriers by listening a little harder than you might normally would listen, or asking them, or being okay going, I didn't quite get what you just said. Could you mind repeating that a little slower? And because trust me, it won't be the first time they've heard that. It won't be the first time they've heard that. Or, I think that we can't get through and past those barriers if we're not willing to engage. And we got to be willing to engage. We just have to. And I'm a person who I like solely really felt comfortable in my world, in my community, with my things, and I'm an introvert too, so I'm like on double that, and I'm also a minority. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to play with anybody who doesn't look like me. But I realized I don't grow the minute I say that's where I'm going to stay in my comfort zone. That's another book you guys should read. It's the difference between the comfort zone and the meaning zone. So you got to figure out, in your mind, where are you going to be? Are you going to stay in your comfort zone, or are you going to grow? Because you can't grow in your comfort zone. You got to stretch. Okay.
And what's my favorite question what's my favorite answer when you say, introduce yourself and tell us who you're trying to meet? My favorite answer is somebody who disagrees with me.
Yes. Because you have to be willing to stretch. Well, guys, I think we're going to shut it down. We had a great conversation. If anybody has anything they'd like to ask really quickly, you can go ahead and throw that in the chat. If not, by the way, continue to open. The chat's going to be continuing to open. So let's keep going. If there's even after the broadcast, you can always just post stuff and information into the chat. And we'll continue to look at it and get feedback from it. Sarah, if you don't mind, definitely, if there's any contact information or anything that you want to share, more importantly, where can we donate to your political process? Put that in the chat so that everybody can, slide you a few dollars. And everybody who's on the chat, don't feel like you have to give Sarah, more than 500. If you could give 1,000, that's fine, but you don't have to, But let's see what we can do to help support her political run. Looking forward to seeing you in the big house in Richmond, Sarah.
Yes.
You all have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.